Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to this week's Tech Talk at the Tech Academy. We are joined by Robbie Kruszynski, who will be talking about breaking into blockchain. And as he said, he's going to be giving a pretty beefy talk, explaining a lot of different things and also how to get into the industry or launch your own test projects. And Robbie is the Associate Manager of Developer Relations at Consensys and the President of the BUIDL network. How do you say that? BUIDL? All
BUIDL.
right.
Yeah.
And he's also a lead instructor for Consensys Academy. And he just knows all the ins and outs of blockchain. So yeah, he's going to be giving us a lot of information. He's going to be posting some links to resources in the chat box if we want to continue the conversation. And if you want to ask any questions as things go along, feel free to put them in the chat box. And thanks everyone for being here. I'm going to let Robbie take it away.
Cool. Well, thank you for the introduction and again for the opportunity to have this presentation. I am excited and it's great to see people are interested in learning more about this. So what I definitely want to do is leave some space for questions. What I want to tell everyone up front is that we are going to be going through a number of topics ranging in complexity, but at the end, I have a number of resources for anyone who perhaps didn't capture something or wants to learn more. You'll get invites to our Discord, along with everything I talk about at the end. There'll be a link for you to further explore. I've also gone ahead and I've made something called a Truffle Box. And so at the end of this, if anyone is curious to try to develop their own decentralized application without having to worry about the scaffolding, I have all of that cooked up. So you can just go ahead, clone that, fork that, and then I have a README that kind of walks you through how to do that. So at any point, if anyone wants me to slow down or speed up, or you have a question, I want this to be a conversation. So please just feel free. So we're just going to talk about breaking into blockchain along with what blockchain is and what is the hype behind NFTs, what is DeFi or decentralized finance, a couple things. So starting out, let's go to that slide. Great. So we're going to be talking about the blockchain ecosystem, MetaMask and transactions, Truffle, Ganache, Solidity and contracts, deployment tools and IDEs, then resources, tools, and questions. Let's talk about the life cycle of a developer. I think regardless of if you're in the Web 2 space, which is how the internet currently stands, versus the Web 3 space, which is the decentralized internet, pretty much works like this, I think, for all devs. You learn a lang, you become wealthy with bugs and frustration, you understand your mistakes, you fix them, you add complexity to your project, you realize you need to learn more to implement the features, and then it starts all over. So I suppose being a developer means you are constantly going to be a student. And this was something that was very driving for me, is I can't stop learning as a dev, because then you sort of fall behind. So if I'm going to learn something, I would like to learn something that's very interesting to me, which is why I started to work in the blockchain space. So we're going to talk about the blockchain ecosystem. So we're going to talk about standard web versus the decentralized web. Tokens, both fungible and non-fungible. NFTs are going to be non-fungible tokens, whereas ERC20s, or let's say Ethereum, is going to be a fungible token. We'll talk about that a little later. Our smart contracts, what are nodes, what are blocks, what's a test net, what's a mainnet, and then we'll talk about the developer portal along with some other resources. Does this feel like a decent tempo for everyone? Can I get a thumbs up? Cool. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. All right, so standard web, it's a client-server model, databases, cloud computing, content distributed networks. Architectures define the owner, single source of truth, right? This is how the web currently stands. Decentralized web operates a little differently. So what we're trying to do is there's no owner, controller, or operator. It's a decentralized blockchain-enabled that enables web apps to connect to networks like Ethereum to provide true decentralized processes. We'll talk about this a little later, but essentially a public ledger. But what ends up happening is everyone who's participating in the EVM or in the Ethereum space, if they want to, can run a node and act as a validator. And what this validator does is it ensures that whatever's happened has happened, and you can verify that across a number of people. So then going back and perhaps tampering with something, an example is if I borrowed $5 from Richard and Richard said, sound good, and I said, hey, I'm going to pay that back next week. A week goes by, and everyone on this call validated this. They said, Robbie borrowed $5 from Richard. A week goes by, and Richard's like, where's my $5? I go back and I try to say, no, I only borrowed $1. That wouldn't work, because the majority of the people on this call who validated this can prove it was in fact $5. So we have fungible tokens, and non-fungible tokens. Fungible means non-unique, right? A good example is that I'll bring up in a moment. It's going to be a dollar bill. If I have $1 bill, it is not worth any more or less than your $1 bill. Now, there are some interesting use cases. If, let's say, someone very famous signed my dollar bill, that then has perhaps more value than your dollar bill. But at the same time, this now becomes non-fungible because it is more unique. So if you, just as I kind of talked about, if you have a stock or if you have a dollar bill, it's worth the same amount. In contrast, for example, the baseball card, cryptocurrencies are fungible, gold is fungible, hay is fungible, right? These are all worth the same amount. Non-fungible is collectibles, which are a really, really good example. A signed Babe Ruth home run ball is not the same as any other baseball. Cards, properties, artworks are all example of non-fungible things. Each one has unique qualities, so you can't swap one out for another and expect perhaps equal value. And so this is like where NFTs are happening right now, is if any of us were to take, let's say, some sort of multimedia, be it a video, be it music, be it an image, a GIF, whatever, and put that on the blockchain, that would be a unique one of one if we are making an NFT, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but that's going to be an ERC 721. And again, I'll have some links to this stuff, but when it comes to creating your own NFTs, there are essentially two main contracts to look at. There are ERC 721s, which are going to be totally unique one of ones, and then there are ERC 1155s. And 1155s are, let's say I drew an image and I wanted to mint 100 of these. So now 100 were available. This could be, from a dev standpoint, this would be one call in my contract. I'm going to say I'm going to mint 100 of these, and that's going to be one call, and the gas associated with deploying that is going to be set. If I were to try to do that with a 721, I would have to do 100 separate calls. So it's almost like batching. And we'll kind of dive into some of the differences, but hopefully some of that makes sense. And if anyone has any questions, please do chirp up. Here we go, an example of fungibility. $1 is $1, no matter where you go. And non-fungible examples are going to be, of course, these two very different examples of the Mona Lisa. Now, a good question or a common question that a lot of people ask is, why would I buy an NFT if I could just take a screenshot of it? What's the difference? That's a great question. And the answer is ownership, right? Taking a picture of the Mona Lisa versus owning the Mona Lisa are very different. So if you can prove the ownership of the original piece of work, it inherently has a value that a screenshot wouldn't, because you can just go on the public ledger, you can see where it's been deployed from, and you can prove, oh, this was made by this person, I own it, that's legit, versus, let's say, a screenshot that I try to deploy, and you can kind of go back and track that this is not coming from the original owner. Hopefully that kind of sticks with you guys. But that's the big question. Why would I pay for it? And the answer is if you don't want to, don't, but it's just about the ownership of the authentic original. So the EVM is the Ethereum virtual machine. It's a key component of Ethereum that provides a Turing complete virtual machine that runs code entirely on the blockchain. Call this the world computer, and the EVM runs code that is deployed on the blockchain. This is a smart contract. And a little later on, we're actually going to deploy our own smart contract on our local. And so when it comes to the way that developers normally develop in this space, it's essentially 3 steps. You have your local, which is going to be, let's say, your Ganache. You can spin up a local deployment. And so this would almost be like if you're deving something, it's your local 3,000 or 8,000 or something. I can't share that information with you because it's only local to you. So this is what Ganache is doing, is it allows you to experiment without any issues. You can then do a deployment on a test net. And the test net could be something that everyone on this call, if I deployed something and put it on Heroku or Netlify, we could all interact with it. But because it's test net, it's not real valued Ethereum. So if something costs 1 million Rinkeby or Ropsten, which are 2 different types of testnet tokens, there's no money behind, no real fiat value. And then there's mainnet. And mainnet is going to be where real value is stored. As a developer, going through this process is going to be a very good thing, and you want to make sure you audit your contracts along the way, because if you just spun something up and you deployed it on mainnet, there is a chance that someone could game your smart contract or your decentralized application that could cause a tremendous amount of headache or money. If someone were to open up a bank and just deploy that on mainnet, and you didn't have in your smart contract a check balance before a withdrawal? What if I, deposited $1 and then on the next I withdrew $100,000? If this wasn't an edge case that was checked for, I would be able to do that, and that would be a huge problem for you. So making sure you audit your contract and you use Diligence or Scribble, these free auditing tools that look for holes along with writing your own tests, are going to save you a lot of headache and money. So blockchain programs, they're decentralized applications. Smart contracts are pieces of executable code that are permanent and unchangeable. In Ethereum, smart contracts have addresses just like your user accounts do. You can send ETH to a smart contract the same way you do any other addresses. So blockchain programs are, an example would be, a very basic example is like a vending machine. There's something in there that has a value and you want that. In order to get that value, you need to have an input to release that value. I want that Coca-Cola. I need to put 75 cents in to get that Coca-Cola. If I had put more in, I get change. If I don't have enough, I don't get it. So vending machines keep an asset safe and moves that asset once the input requirements are met. So this is like the functionality of how a smart contract works. You write the functionality and you write the logic of what will happen based on user interaction, and until that is met, nothing is going to happen. So as I mentioned, this is a high-level example. They can be very powerful, and they can be outrageously complex. But just to kind of get your head around how this works, just think of like a vending machine. Nodes. The network is entirely comprised of computers running node software and interacting with each other, right? There's no central authority. It's decentralized, and that's what makes it so powerful, is there's no entity that holds ownership. While in reality, this can be quite complicated. You can think of each node as storing a copy of the blockchain with protocols in place to ensure that new blocks are added in a consistent, organized, and agreed upon way. Being a validator, having your node in that example I used earlier, where I lent I borrowed $5 from Richard. These nodes that everyone is validating and has will then allow for Richard to undeniably prove the fact that I did borrow those $5. So what's in a block? Pretty much, it's the list of transactions, it's the value, the sender, the receiver, and there's a variety of other informations that we don't have to get into right now, but there's a hash for an action. And the way that this works is you have block 1, and block 1 has a hash, and then block 2 has a new hash, but it's pulling in the previous hash. Then block 3 has block 2's hash, and it has a new hash for itself. So each one pulls in the one prior, like a big daisy chain. And if I go back and I try to tamper with block 2, block 3 is going to recognize that that hash is now different, and it's going to not work, which makes it very tamper-proof. And I forget like the math behind it, but in order to like hack the blockchain, without getting into like quantum computers, it is essentially impossible. It would take like thousands of years and a lot of computers all trying to like figure out the hash algorithm to kind of combat that or to hack that. So as I mentioned earlier, we have mainnet, we have testnet. Mainnet's the primary value carrying network that is agreed to be the official place where real currency is traded. We have testnets. They're smaller networks that devs can use to test their applications when they want to move beyond home spun up networks. As I mentioned a little earlier, Ganache is going to be our home, and then a testnet is going to be something that we could all interact with. So this allows for essentially real world testing. We have Ropsten, Kovan, Rinkeby, which are the main ones. Most of the time, Ropsten and Rinkeby are the main ones. And you might think to yourself, well, if there's no value behind this, how do I get this stuff? There are faucets. And essentially what you do with a faucet is you would put in your public address and you would then receive X amount. If anyone here is curious about obtaining some of this and you by chance have a wallet, if after this call, if you wanted to give me your public address, I'd be more than happy to share any test ETH, not main ETH, test ETH with anyone who wants to develop. This is necessary to pay the gas for creating a transaction or deploying a contract. It's a lot going on, but I will show this later. So hopefully it kind of like showing you will help enforce it. And then we have Etherscan, right? And so it's a blockchain explorer. This is our public ledger. I've used this metaphor in the past, but a really, really easy way to think about this is blockchain can really assist when it comes to a peer-to-peer action without having to trust anything, right? An example is, let's say that there's a giant community board and I buy a house, and I bought a house for $100,000. And then I decided to update the kitchen, and holding these two things together is a wax seal, right? And then I built a garage, wax seal. I did this, wax seal, wax seal, wax seal. So now somebody can, let's say Steve, can come up to the billboard or the community board and say like, oh, I'm interested in buying this house. And instead of having to get adjusters and inspectors and like go through these big hoops where you have a lot of medium people that take a tremendous amount of cut, you can trust that as long as the wax seals have not been tampered with, everything is verified and it's legitimate. So I think that's a kind of perhaps a high level example of how it works, but these wax seals are what allow people to not have to trust people. You can trust the action, you can trust the code. MetaMask and transactions. So what's a transaction? What is MetaMask? How do you install it? Sending your first transaction and other things you can do with MetaMask. So the UX of a transaction from a user perspective is a transaction to transfer value from one account to another. It's me pulling out of my wallet and putting it in another wallet. That's how it works. This can be owned by an individual or can be an account of a smart contract. Transactions can include data that is processed by the smart contracts and is used in distributed apps. Signing is a really interesting thing that MetaMask allows you to do that not only can it store tokens, but it can also interface that gives users the ability to sign transactions. So signing is a process used by the blockchain network to authenticate a transaction. So this way, when something happens, your public address is now stapled and is now put on that community billboard, which is viewable by Etherscan. So this is a way in which you can, I suppose, sort of stay anonymous, but everything, again, is verified by the blockchain. So you can't interact without signing because it has to point to somewhere for all the nodes to validate that transaction. So only the processor of a private key can sign a transaction for the corresponding account. Nodes validate those transactions mathematically to ensure that they're legitimately signed. So this is kind of like how the whole wheel works. And I'm happy to kind of show this in just a moment on Remix. So private keys, cryptography, hash functions, security, right? Everyone's really curious about it. So blockchains and accounts are secured largely through public key encryption. From the perspective of the blockchain, anyone who possesses a private key can control any corresponding addresses. And I really, really underline this. And if there's a takeaway you get, please let it be this. When you sign up for an address, or I'm sorry, a wallet, forgive me, you are given a private key and you are given a mnemonic. These are the most important things to keep secure. I would not recommend you keep this on your computer. Don't email it to yourself. Don't write it down on a piece of paper. And if you plan on accruing something, put that in a safe or something. If someone has access to your mnemonic or your private key, they can act as you. They can just dump your account. They could spend your money. They could do whatever they want to do. If you lose these things and you forget your password, you cannot recover your wallet. So if you forget your password, it's going to say, all right, we'll put your mnemonic in and then we can reset it. And you go, I don't know what my mnemonic is. You've now lost control of that wallet. And if there were millions of dollars of Bitcoin in there, or not Bitcoin, Ethereum, too bad. You can't recover it. It's just not possible. And this is behind like the privacy of how the security works when it comes to these wallets. So please, please keep track of your private and your mnemonic. This is tremendously important. So let's get technical, as though we haven't already. So what we're going to achieve in this session is we're going to make a Hello World project. We're going to deploy it. We're going to look at some of the tools available to assist you with your development. We're going to make that contract. We're going to deploy it locally, and then we're going to observe this on an IDE called Remix. And so we're going to be covering some of the technology to give you a better understanding of how all these things work together. So we're going to talk about the tools we're using. We're going to make a project, take a tour of the scaffolding, create our hello world.sol contract, update our migration directory, adjust our config file for the local network deployment, deploy using Ganache, and then deploy using Remix. So the tools we're going to use is we are going to start by, and again, I don't want you to get lost in trying to find these things. I'm happy to provide all the information. After this, we are going to be using the Truffle Suite. And so the Truffle Suite is an excellent development environment that allows you to connect and test with the EVM. It was created to make development easier, and interacts occurs locally, which helps reduce the stress of deployment on testnet and mainnet. In order to install this, it would just be an npm install truffle-g. Again, I would say this would probably be tricky to follow along with. So I would suggest just kind of observing, and then afterward, there are some steps, if you're curious, I have to share. Then we're going to be using Ganache, which I mentioned earlier. It's a personal blockchain that you can use locally to quickly spin up and test the functionality of a project. This is the lowest friction way to start to test things out. So it's an incredible tool. You can develop, you can deploy, you can test. This all happens locally, no big deal. You can, if you want, use the CLI or the command line interface, or you can use the GUI if you prefer something a little more visual. In this instance, we are going to be using the CLI. So time to spin up our project. So what we're going to go ahead and do is, give me just one moment. I'm going to skip over here. So we can see I have my hello world.example, and I'm going to do an ls, and we can see that nothing is in there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, since I have Truffle installed, I'm going to do a Truffle init, and that's going to initialize Truffle in this project. Done. Started the initialization. I do an ls to open it up. I can see I've got contracts, migrations, test, and a truffle.config. And I've got my VS Code open. And so we can go ahead and take a little peek in here, and we can see what's going on. So the contracts folder is going to be where you contain your smart contracts. And we will talk about Solidity in just a little bit. And the migration is going to be something that allows you to compile your contracts that you can then use in your front end to interact with. So we just have the scaffolding up. We'll go ahead and we'll go back to the slides, and we'll chat a little more. So let's look under the hood, contracts. So just as I mentioned, this is where you store your .sol or your Solidity files. Migrations is a complete, fully working smart contract written in Solidity. As we can see, it's cooked in here. We have migrations.sol. Do not delete this. You need this. Also, do not delete the initial migrations. Both of these things are here for a reason. So it's used by Truffle to ensure that your project's deployment on the blockchain is carried out in the proper sequence. Now we'll talk about migrations. This is a wall of text. Don't sweat it. Long story short, migrations are JavaScript files that allow you to deploy your contracts to the Ethereum network. Truffle migrations enable us to push the smart contracts to the Ethereum blockchain. A way to think about them is they are predominantly responsible for the staging and the deployment of your tasks. So the migrations are equally important to everything else in this process. Tests, of course, are where you're going to write tests. What's cool is if you prefer to write your tests in JavaScript or in Solidity, you could do either one. They're conditionals. Of course, you write against your contract to ensure it behaves as expected, and you want to make sure that you can find the exploits before somebody else does. Our Truffle config file is pretty much going to be our walkie-talkie. So what this is going to allow us to do is it's going to be our main configuration in our Truffle project that allows us to define the network to use, the gas usage, the addresses to deploy with, along with a couple other variables. If we want to deploy to mainnet, to testnet, to local, the truffle config.js file is incredible. This is what allows everything to happen. So talked about it, made our project. Took a quick tour of the scaffolding. Now we are going to create our hello world.sol contract, and we are going to deploy that, and we're going to talk about it. So prior to that, let's talk about Solidity for just a moment. If you're not familiar, it's a very popular object-oriented high-level length for implementing smart contracts that run on the EVM. Smart contracts are programs which govern the behavior of the accounts, just as we talked about earlier, this vending machine example. If you've never looked at Solidity prior, but if you're familiar with C or JS, you'll notice there are more than a few similarities. An example I have right here is going to be the contract that we're deploying. So we are going to declare the version that we're using of Solidity. You always have to have this at the top. Your pragma Solidity, and you give the range of which Solidity you're using. If you do not have this, your contract will not compile. We have our contract. We've declared it hello world. Inside of that, we're going to have a string. It's going to be public, which is going to be viewable. We're going to call that message. A constructor is something that runs on the initial deployment of the contract. this is going to be a string. We're going to hold the memory of it. It's going to be an initial message. This again is going to be public. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to take that message and turn that into an initial message. And then we'll have our function that allows us to update. So again, we're going to take that string. We're going to take that new message that we've declared. We're going to take message and turn that into new message. That was a little clunky. I apologize, but I will show you in just a moment how this works. So let's head over here to our contracts, and I'm going to go ahead and make a new file. Is this good for everyone in terms of like the visibility, or would a little larger be okay? I got a thumbs up. Cool. So let's do hello world.sol. I am going to, just for the sake of time, grab this contract, and it is the same contract that we just talked about. So I'm going to grab that right here. It's our hello world. And so we can break it down a little bit. So we have our pragma, the keyword. The contract is the collection of functions and data, its state that resides at a specific address on the Ethereum blockchain. And now what we have to do is we need to go ahead and we need to update our migrations. So I'm going to make a new file. This is in sequential order. We have our 1. We need to make sure that we start with a 2. We're going to go ahead. We're going to do deploy, I don't know, contracts. And this is going to be a .js deploy contracts. Did I spell that right? I did. Cool. Wait. Why is this taking so long? Sorry. Okay, weird. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this. And so what this is this is going to be our migration. So we're creating a variable called hello world. It's going to be pulling in the artifacts and requiring this hello world, which is going to be our contract. We're going to have our function, which is a deployer. We're going to go ahead and deploy it. And we know that because we are trying to update our hello world functionality, we need to pass in a string. And so that's really it for this. We have our contract. We have our migration that calls on our contract. And now, what is going? Okay, and now what we have to do is we have to update our truffle.config, which is going to be where we update all of our network information. And we can see in truffle config, a lot of this stuff is messaged out, tons of really good information in here. And actually to the point where I'm going to take lines 45 through 49, uncomment that out, and there we go. So now this is going to allow me to deploy locally. And an example of how this is going to work is I am going to go ahead and I'm going to spin up Ganache CLI. And so this is going to be like my GUI, my local. It's already in use. Okay, let's not do that then. Live coding demos, right, everyone? Always fun. Give me a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat and I'm going to open up the GUI so that I can change the RPC port. And give me just a moment. And so let's go over, let's go here, pull this in. We can see the Ganache, yes? Awesome, cool, cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on one of these. We're gonna go ahead and make sure that this is all good. We're starting up our local blockchain. This is gonna take a moment. And we're gonna change our port number. So I can cheat, save and restart. And here we go. So what we see here is our RPC server is HTTP 127.001 and 7545. So this is very important information because if we go back to our code, which lives here, we see our 127.001. There's our host, and our port has to now be, instead of 8545, has to be a 7545. And now we should be good to go. So what I can do is I'm going to do a Truffle Compile, because I'm going to compile my contract. We're going to give that just a moment. And we are compiling, we've compiled, we've successfully compiled. So check this out, this is cool stuff. Now, if we go here, we had our contracts, we had our migrations, we had our tests and our truffle. Now we have a build file folder. Inside of it, we have 2 JSONs. Now we have our hello world JSON. This right here, this ABI, this is hosting an array which contains an object that's going to be very important information. Essentially, this is your backend, right? Your smart contract's your backend. And if you wanted to, let's say, use React to be your front end, you would need to pass in this ABI information to your front end, so that way it knows what contract you're referring to, and then you could spin up a full stack dApp. At the end of this, will share a developer portal I wrote steps 2 and 3 for that walk you through installing everything, and at the end of it, you have a full stack Solidity, React, utilizing Infura, and I think even like Material UI for some flavor. So if you wanted to go ahead and go through that and even give me some feedback, that would be that'd be really cool. But this ABI is going to be very, very important information that we don't need quite yet for this example, but we've successfully compiled. So now what we have to do is we have to migrate. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a truffle migrate, and it is going to then call upon our local blockchain after I've compiled, and we should see a deployment in just a moment. So we're recompiling, checking, that's all good. We have, here we go. We're deploying our migrations, which is cooked in. We're deploying our hello world. There we go, done. So we have our contract address that we can always use to refer. We see the block number, we see the timestamp, the account, the balance. You might say, like, where is this 99 coming from? That is coming from, my computer is so upset, right here. When you spin up a local blockchain in order to experiment with, it gives you 10 addresses, each with 100 ETH. So you can refer to these and play around with them, and you don't have to worry about sourcing anything. So that's our ABI. And we did a local deployment, and we deployed our hello world. So the next step would be deploying to a test net, building out a front end for functionality, and then mainnet. So you might think, okay, well, we deployed it. I don't really know what the hell is going on, and that's fair. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Remix to actually see how this contract works. Oh, stay with me, computer. So here we go. Same thing, our contract, our hello world, same code. We're going to go ahead, and this is our area to start to explore using Remix, which is that IDE. I'm connected on Ropsten, which is a test network that I mentioned. What I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy the contract. And so we can see down here, we're creating, oh, it's going to pull up MetaMask in like such a big form, sorry. So now what I'm doing is I'm trying to update the state of the blockchain. And so I have to pay for that because I'm deploying a contract. And when you deploy a contract, you have to pay the gas. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to confirm this. Again, this is not, there's no value behind this. So now we're waiting for this. We can observe the transaction of it on Etherscan, ropsten.etherscan, because it's a testnet. And we see, there you go, boom. We have our block. We can see the status. We can see the constructor that was formed, the cost of it, the hash of it, et cetera, et cetera. So now if we go to our deployed contracts down here, we can see functionality. So we have our update. We see string new message, which we've declared right here, string new message, and it has to be a string. And so what I'm going to do is in a string say, hello, everyone, not even hello world. I'm going to update it. I have a quick question for anyone. What happens when I push update? Does anyone have an idea? Will MetaMask pop up? Will nothing happen? Will it break? Does anyone? I'll give just a moment. Okay. So what's going to happen is I'm updating the state. And when I update the state, I have to pay for it. So I'm going to click on update, and MetaMask is going to pop up again in the most giant way. And because I'm updating the state, I've deployed it, I had to pay for it. I put something out there. Now I'm going to update it, got to pay for it. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sign that and say, yep, that is what I did, and that looks good. So we see our transaction to Hello World is updating. We are waiting for that confirmation once the blocks have cured. And then when we click message, we should see hello everyone. We're going to wait for that confirmation. Did it go through already? Not yet. So because it hasn't validated yet, we can see we've done a call and our string contains nothing. There we go. Here's our pass through. So now I click message, boom, hello world. So if I were to go in here again and update this again, MetaMask would once again pop up because I'm updating the state. I would have to pay for that, and then it would update my ability to push message, and it would no longer say hello world or hello everyone. It would say whatever was in there. If I don't put it in a string, it will break because I declared that it has to be inside of a string. So hopefully that kind of like pieced it together in terms of talking about the smart contracts, migrations, Doing that locally, as we saw, utilizing Ganache and Truffle, and then using Remix to actually see what the functionality of the contract would be. I would encourage anyone who wants to start to mess around with contracts to actually check out Remix. There are a number of kind of cooked in contracts in here that there's like owner, there's storage, there's a ballot. So, ballots are like really interesting. Like once you vote, you can't double vote, or, it checks the authenticity of like that vote. This would probably be a good place to get lost if you decided to. So let's head back. So we talked about Remix. We talked about what it is. We spun it up. Now I want to talk about resources. So there's the BUIDL network. I run the BUIDL network. As of right now, it's about 70,000, maybe a little more people strong globally, spanning across, I think, 31 countries. And it's a meetup hub for hosting global events that focus on 3 core concepts: blockchain education, infrastructure development, community engagement. So if you just want to participate and you want to join more conversations like this, or if you're interested in NFTs or in decentralized finance or in contract development, or you just want to talk about blockchain is a scam to me, there's probably a pocket somewhere where people are talking about this. Obviously, because COVID is awful, what it has opened up, though, is now there's huge access to conversations that are happening all over the world, opposed to kind of staying in your local region. So there's the BUIDL network, which I would implore you to check out. There's also consensys.net/developers. And again, I'll give some links. This is what I was talking about. When you go here, you're going to see getting started with Ethereum. You're going to send your first transaction. You're going to create a smart contract, and you are going to launch a decentralized app utilizing all the tools to have something that you could show off, have it in your GitHub. It's going to use React, and it really walks you through all everything you need to do to build a project and then build upon that project. Crypto Zombies. Crypto Zombies is amazing. It's a gamified way to explore how to mess around with solidities. Maybe you've heard of Flexbox Froggy or Grid Garden, right? Crypto Zombies is a way that you can step-by-step explore how to create a really interesting contract where you create a zombie and you make a horde of zombies to kind of take over the world. And they're very good at kind of compartmentalizing the logic. And if you get stuck, of course, they will reveal the answer. So if you stick with it, you could actually learn quite a bit out of it. And then we have Gitcoin. Gitcoin to me is a very powerful thing that gets people quite excited when they're coming into this space. Gitcoin is all about open source, and Gitcoin has bounties. And the way that bounties work, if you're like, hey, this is all cool and everything, but I need money. So what if you could get paid for your open source contributions? So what you could do is on Gitcoin, you can view bounties. And let's say I have a bounty. I'm going to make a bounty for 1 ETH. I don't have time. I don't want to hire anybody to make a hello world backend and front end deployed that I could share with everyone. And then everyone here on this call could do that. And then I would pick the one that I thought solved my problem in the best way, or essentially the best program or application. And then you would get paid out for that. So not only being a developer is important to like contribute to open source, because I think this looks good for anyone going into the space. It's often a question asked by a lot of interviewers. You can get paid for it as well. So a cool way to acquire Ether or DAI or anything else out there is to not buy it, is to earn it instead. So this way your ceiling is like quite high because you have no principal, unless you of course consider your time, but your time if you're learning kind of works out for everybody. So Gitcoin is a really, really cool way to earn money. It's not just coding too. Sometimes there's design work. Sometimes there's like research. Sometimes there's a creation of decks. So it really has a rather robust Rolodex worth of asks from different companies at different times. Also, this is where hackathons happen, which I would encourage everyone to explore the hackathons as well. It's a very good way to meet people. There is the Consensys Academy. No shill, but it's real, right? It's an effort, and it's a program to help developers learn. It is self-paced. I'm one of the instructors, and we've taken people who've had no technical background, and they've graduated and have performed quite well. One of my favorite stories is this one gentleman came from Wall Street, came from like deep finance, decided to quit, went through our academy, had a final project. That final project was a really cool project. Without getting into DeFi, it was essentially a scraper to look at the highest APY when you do like a liquidity pool pairing. If that was all jargon, we could talk about that later. But he made this like kind of ugly but very functional dApp and entered a hackathon with it. A couple other people said, hey, that's cool. And they joined in on developing this out. After they developed it out, they actually won the hackathon, and an angel investor approached them and was like, hey, how much money do you need to like build this out more? So it was like pretty incredible, where it's like, wow, you just like took your final project and like spun up like a proper like little business. So this is, I think, like really powerful in the space, is everyone is looking for builders. So maybe you get an internship with a company, or maybe you have a project that gets seeded from somebody else. So there are a lot of opportunities. And then, of course, the Consensys Discord, which I am super bullish on. So if you need help getting set up in the Web3 space, if you want to talk to members directly from Infura, from MetaMask, from Codify, if you want to talk to other people about NFTs, DeFi, if you have questions being a developer, if you want to share your project, look for teammates, you want to do anything, this is the place to do it. And I'm one of the mods on it, and so I would be happy to run you through how to get set up, which should be pretty self-explanatory. Another thing that we do is every Thursday we have our weekly calls. These are not recorded; they're open for everyone to join, and we have a range of topics we talk about for an hour, and we also bring in a lot of some of the like thought leaders in the space. And with that said, I will leave the floor open for some questions. Or if anyone had that wanted to talk about NFTs at all and like the potentials behind them outside of just perhaps like art, we could talk about that as well. Oh, Glenn, I see a hand raised.
Yes, thank you. It's very informative. I know that was quick, but I learned a lot. My question is, with all the the whole idea of using blockchains, are there independent blockchains? How difficult is that to set up? So if you had an idea to just use the blockchain to record information, but it had nothing to do about cryptocurrency. Could you talk about that? Smart contracts and other applications. But the primary reason was not to create a currency. Maybe it used ETH or something else.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I just want to make sure I understand the question correctly, but you are able to create a smart contract and deploy it on any network, and it does not have to be around, let's say, like buying or selling a token. There could be actions associated with this, and if you wanted to inject the ability to have, different fiats in there, you could do this as well. But when it comes to the blockchain, maybe if I'm misunderstanding, there are also private blockchains that enterprises use as well. So if you were interested in something like that, Consensys Quorum is a good example, which Consensys and JP Morgan recently got close, and we work on that. So this is still on a ledger. It is just not public. It is private. So if you were looking to do something that was like more internal, that perhaps didn't have anything to do with like the trading of cryptocurrencies, this could be one option, or you could deploy it publicly as well.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple. Oh, here, Ali. It looks like Ali has a question. I'll save my questions for when other folks don't have any.
Okay, yeah, sorry to cut you
No,
off.
this is for you, not for me.
I appreciate your time, Robbie. I just have a couple of questions. I've been doing research on like different parts of like the blockchain, and there's a couple of different concepts that I don't really understand exactly how they work. One thing is like about sharding, like how when different parts shard, how does that actually link up together?
Yeah, that is a very technical question. That's cool that you're clearly doing research. Sharding has not been implemented yet. All right, this is coming with ETH. This is coming with ETH 2.0. Long story short, what is happening is we're going from proof of work to proof of stake, known as POW to POS. Proof of work is these mining rigs, people have computers, there's this concern of the electricity that is being consumed by these validators, and it's kind of a problem. So what we're doing is we're moving to proof of stake. So instead of having a computer that's validating this and like trying to solve the algorithms as quickly as possible to get a miner's fee and to get money, now what we're doing is you have 32 ETH on mainnet, you kind of put it in this bucket and you become a validator. And then you can host your node on a cloud server, or you can host it on something physical. But this is going to really help when it comes to the consumption of energy and how we are kind of validating nodes. And then beyond that, sharding, without really getting into it, almost imagine like you had to read a book, right? Instead of you having to read the whole book, maybe you read, and it's X amount, you read a third of it, and then 2 other people read the other 2/3 of it. So now when you all come together, you've all read the book, and you can like kind of talk about that, and like you can verify like, oh, you read the front part, I read the middle, you read the back. So instead of you having to read the whole book, you can compartmentalize what you read, but still get all of the knowledge eventually. That was probably not the greatest analogy, but sharding is a very complex topic that essentially makes the chunks in which you have to validate information a little more digestible. And so this can increase the process to confirm a transaction. There's a website that I'm happy to share after this, or on YouTube. It goes by Finmatics, and they have their videos are absolutely incredible, and they discuss a range of things. They talk about Uniswap, they talk about NFTs, they talk about DeFi, they talk about sharding, they talk about what is proof of work to stake, and everything in between. I highly, and they're really entertaining too. They're very well done. I would recommend checking out Finmatics on YouTube to kind of get lost in that hole.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that was very informative. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So is it like, instead of having like 10 people all trying to read the whole book, you have 10 people sharing a 10th of the book and then coming together as proof?
Yes. And so what this essentially does is it also saves time, because now you don't have to, let's say, read the whole book, right? So now you could perhaps read the first X amount of like multiple books, and like the validation process becomes a lot faster, and it's less of a load on like that validator. There are a lot of other intricacies behind sharding. It is honestly like super technical, and I even like have my head spinning sometimes when I try to figure it out, but it is incredible, and that is something that's going to be coming out for ETH 2.0.
I just wanted to follow up. One other question I have is about like layer 0, 1, and 2. Like what is exactly when they talk about like different layers of the blockchain?
It's another good question. I do want to be mindful of the time, because that is something. I'm happy to send you some documentation, but it's essentially like the iterations of the movement that are happening as Ethereum is developed. There are forks and there are updates to the network, and so this kind of talks about like different levels or like iterations that are happening to the EVM, along with a couple other things. I would be more than happy to sync up with you and kind of give you some material to view in terms of, I'm sure you've heard a lot of layer 0, layer 1, layer 2, and yeah. Sorry that wasn't a great answer, but
no, I appreciate it.
That in itself could be like an hour long.
Okay, makes sense. I appreciate the links that you could send me. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think I saw someone else had their hand.
Yeah, Glenn again. Could you talk about, ETH and ETH2? I mean, ETH2 understands more carbon friendly. Will all ETH go to ETH2? Are they 2 separate forks? You just talk about that in general, the differences, or how do they work together, and just, how do they compare and contrast?
I guess I'm not super familiar with F1 and F2.
No, I'm sorry, Ethereum and Ethereum 2, ETH.
Oh, I see. Oh, yes. Yeah, so that fork, essentially Ethereum, the first variant of it, like Ethereum Classic exists, but this was because people didn't want to. Essentially, if you don't accept the fork that happens, you don't necessarily have to pivot based on that fork. So you could say, I like this version and I don't want to upgrade. You can kind of stay somewhere. And so this is what like Ethereum Classic is. However, with all of the movement that is happening in the space and like the proper development behind the security and the abilities, it is essentially in the network and everyone's best interest to stay on the train. And so this is like going to be the big difference between Ethereum Classic and Ethereum as it currently stands, is while they're both named Ethereum and they are both Ethereum, one of them is essentially obsolete, whereas the other one is what is being developed on now.
Okay, great. And then today there was an article, I think in the New York Times, talking about this company, I think in Binghamton, New York, something like that, where the power company discussed that they were starting to use excess power to do mining of crypto. and that they were asking for a new permit to expand their power generation to mine more crypto, but they're burning natural gas. Can you talk about the whole movement with crypto and the planet? You know.
Yeah, and so absolutely. As I was kind of chatting a little bit earlier, so that mining and that infrastructure as big rigs exist right now, and people have factories in areas where electricity is like not particularly expensive to maximize their profits. This is proof of work. And so Ethereum is working on going to proof of stake. So this idea of mining under like this heavy energy consumption way is going to be phased out. It is absolutely an issue right now, and obviously I can only speak on Ethereum because that's what I work with, but we are addressing that with the transition from POW to POS, or proof of stake.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Something that I kind of wanted to mention quickly was like the power of NFTs. As of right now, I think people are just like, oh, it's an image and I could buy it and then I own it and then sell it or whatever. And that's cool. That's really cool. But there are some like really interesting edge cases that we are working on. I personally have developed a community-driven NFT. And so this is deployed on the testnet, which has no value. But essentially what happens is, let's say everyone on this call, I deploy you an NFT and you get a Tech Academy blockchain NFT that I made. This you can observe in your wallet once you have the contract address. It's a token. You can see it. Great. What do you do with it? You can come to, let's say, the Consensys Discord or any Discord, or even Telegram if you wanted, and you can do a command that checks your wallet to see if you hold this NFT. So you'd have the Tech Academy blockchain NFT. It would verify that you do. And once it does, it assigns you a role. And this role would allow you to do whatever I've determined. So now it's like, I want us to be in a round table and only people who have attended this call can be part of that conversation. You hold this NFT and it grants you that permission. So what I'm doing is I'm issuing you an NFT, but I'm airdropping you a role. And so you might think, well, like, well, what if somebody comes up to me and they want to buy it off of me? They could. And if you move that NFT to their wallet, after about 10 minutes, the scan will see that you no longer hold this NFT and will kick you out of those privileges. You will no longer have that that role or whatever was created for it. So I think this moving forward could be like a really powerful experiment where people are essentially issuing out tokens that do certain things. Or if somebody on this call translated the dev portal to Portuguese or Mandarin or whatever language, and I issued them a translator token, now everyone who's done this work could have a translator token, and now all the translators can like talk together in a channel. And so we could start to like work and develop the community together, utilizing these NFTs as these quasi incentives, not even quasi, just incentives, I suppose. So, yeah.
So it's like having a Reddit room, but not a bunch. You don't start the blockchain developers Reddit room, and then it's just a bunch of people that are like, how do I get into this?
Right. And so for me, the future, I wholeheartedly believe the future is verifiable credentials that are attached to NFTs that could be viewable in your MetaMask. Because here's the problem. Let's say I gave Richard an ambassador token, and then he sold it to Paul. And now I see Paul has it. Maybe Paul acts maliciously, or maybe Paul shouldn't have it, but he does because Richard sold it to him. There's nothing I could do to stop that. But what we could do is we can start to think about the verifiable credential that we attach to an NFT. So very quickly we can see, yes, Paul has it, but Paul shouldn't have it because this was passed off by Richard. So we can quickly check, this came from the source, this came from me, and went to Richard, and then went to Paul. So we now know to kind of flag Paul on the chance that he's going to act malicious. But I think what's really interesting is when it comes to doing anything, if you issue out these like essentially credentials or these kudos or whatever you want to call them, and they're all verified on your MetaMask or any wallet, if you go to get a job, you don't necessarily have to write a resume. You now have a collection of NFTs that represent a group of work that you've done that are all verifiably yours. So now if I'm like, well, do you know how to develop in Solidity? If you hold a token that kind of proves that, I don't have to ask you. And now this comes to like transferable reputation. So now anywhere you go holding these tokens, it's all verifiable. An example is like if you're on eBay for 20 years and you develop this huge reputation, and then you go to Etsy, that doesn't transfer over. You have to start all over. So how can we essentially create these tokens that transfer around? So if you do act maliciously, you kind of get caught for that. So ideally, it tries to create decent behavior. If I have an Airbnb and I gyp people, and then I go to like some other thing and like kind of restart my identity, what stops me from going around and just being like a turd? You know, like really nothing. And eventually I'll get caught, but I could probably run it for a while. Or what if something you had essentially this like representation of your efforts that followed you around everywhere. So it's probably in your best interest to uphold that and to like perform well, because this builds your reputation. So it's cool stuff. We're just getting started. That's the fun part.
So for someone that does not hold any cryptocurrency and has very little experience interacting with blockchain technology, where would you direct them to go to maybe like open up their first wallet or something like that?
Sure. So now I'm going to just real quick stop presenting, and now come the links. Essentially, what I would suggest is, people should download MetaMask. Is available on mobile, and it's available on desktop, and it has over 5 million active users on it. It's what Kleenex is to tissue. I would say MetaMask is to wallets. It's becoming that household brand. The team is incredible, and they're doing a lot of really important work to make sure that this is a smooth UX experience. So I would say checking out MetaMask. And I would also say, if you're interested in perhaps purchasing some, perhaps some of you are familiar with like Coinbase. That is like quite popular right now. I admittingly am not very keen on Coinbase, just because of their KYC, or their know your customer. You have to give up a considerable amount of information. They work pretty directly with the IRS, and their fees are, in my opinion, quite ludicrous. Now, if you just feel comfortable because it's used, go for it, right? Whatever you want to do. There's one in particular I like, and it has a mobile, it has a desktop variant. It's called Gemini, just Gemini. And I think Gemini is very easy to use. And in my opinion, what I appreciate about it is they don't hold, although they did just get Dogecoin on there, I would say they don't have a trillion tokens on there where a newcomer might come and get lost in the sauce of like, I don't know which ones to buy. I would say that Gemini is a little more particular about the tokens that they do hold, and I would say most all of them are credible projects. Whereas Coinbase, you could perhaps, without knowing it, get a little burnt. Now, explore whatever you'd like to, of course, but these are the two things. Another thing I want people to realize is you can do token exchanges. So let's say you buy one Ethereum, and you would rather have another token. You could go on something like Uniswap, or you could use MetaMask Swap and take your token or a percentage of that token and convert it into something else. So this is also an option that maybe not everyone is like aware of, is that you can kind of play around with what you do. Now, you can't turn Ethereum into Bitcoin because these are separate blockchains, but let's say there's Chainlink right now, which is an Oracle provider, and it's really, really cool. If you're like, hey, I want to get some Link, but I don't want to pay for it, you could take half of your ETH or a third or all of it, whatever percentage you want, and then turn that into Chainlink. And now in your wallet, you would see you have Ether and you have Chainlink as well. All right, so I am going to, please, anyone, if you have questions, I'm going to start firing off these links.
Yeah, I was also curious of like which programming languages are most often used in this blockchain technology. I saw this, now I can't even remember what it was called.
Solidity.
Solidity, JavaScript, React. Are there other languages that are good to know if you want to get into developing in this space?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So Rust is a language that a project called Near uses. I love Rust. I think Rust is like the coolest lang ever. It kind of breaks my head because it's so low level, but I also find it like really beautiful because the compiler is the angriest pair programming partner you've ever had in your life. But it does make it so you probably don't write bad code. It just doesn't let you write bad code. So Rust is very popular. I would say look at Near, N-E-A-R, and they've got some really great documentation that kind of walk you through deploying a smart contract with Rust. Most all projects are using React. I don't know too many that are using Vue for front. React is going to be pretty popular for the front end. No one is really writing any front end that's just going to be like ES6. It's mostly just going to be React. Solidity, of course. If you are someone who's interested in Python and you wanted to explore what's going on there, I would say there's Viper. It's VYP. I think it's spelled a little goofy. It might be VYPER, just Viper. And this is going to be a lang that you can use to develop utilizing your Python chops. And there's also Brownie, just like the treat Brownie, which is an interesting library that I would suggest you look at as well. Cool. So, all right, so I just put in the Discord. There is Crypto Zombies. Here is an invitation to, oh, sure, Paul, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I would say a physical wallet is great. You know, I think there's some interesting things that have happened in the past with like some hacks behind some physical wallets and like perhaps some emails being exposed. But probably best practice would be to have a physical ledger that you could keep everything on if you are going to start to accumulate an amount of money that you would rather not have as a piece of software. And I think that this is like an interesting kind of back and forth of like, well, what if you lose it? You know, then I guess you lost it, and you're not going to like lose the software, but at the same time, the security behind it is obviously going to be better. So I most of the time keep a little bit on my main wallet on MetaMask just to pay for gas transactions. But then I also have a physical wallet where I keep a majority of my holdings. So there's Meetup. Here is a link to MetaMask. Here is a link to a feedback form, which does offer, if you do have an ENS or if you do have a public name, or I'm sorry, a public address, do share that with me and I'll give you an NFT or something. And I'll teach you how to do that. There's Gitcoin. And then here is something that I've cooked up. This is going to be my my box utilizing Truffle and Infura for development on the testnet. This is a newer project that I've done. I would say break the hell out of it. That will help me submit a PR, make it better. That would be awesome. But hopefully the README is going to kind of walk you through. Ooh, and one more. The dev portal, of course, which I would say is an incredible place to start out, not because I wrote it, but because we've had a lot of very good feedback from people saying, I don't know what's going on. They get through it, and all of a sudden, they're now building out decentralized applications of their own because they understand kind of the fundamentals to how these things are pieced together. Let me see if this is it. Is it Slack? So I'm going to be linking. So it's kind of starting you out at 3. Step 3 is going to be the most robust, but I'd say go ahead, scroll down and check out steps 1 if you're unfamiliar, steps 2 if you want to experience like Remix and kind of wrap your head around migrations and contracts, and then step 3 is going to be much deeper in terms of code. And if you have any problems with this, please do reach out to me, ideally in the Discord. My name is just Robbie K, and I'm happy to walk you through it. Or if you find a typo or a bug somewhere, let me know, and I will make a correction there. So I think those are my links. We got Meetup, MetaMask, Typeform, Gitcoin, my box, and the dev portals. Yep, I think that's it. So hopefully this was informative. I'm also happy to source any other questions or answer any questions as best I can if anyone has anything else.
Looks like Glenn has a question.
Yeah, real quick. I remember a couple of years ago, well, maybe 2018, 2019, MetaMask was slammed that the security wasn't very good. I take it they've overcome that. I guess there were some hacks on it.
Yeah, that yes. Unfortunately, sometimes when it comes to like the hacks, it comes down to people are not particularly careful with their privacy. And so now if they lose something or if they give their private key away, they're like, I've been hacked. And it's like, well, you can't say like my identity was stolen and you're like giving everyone your social security number. It's like, I think that's kind of your fault. So with that said, the security behind MetaMask is fantastic, and it's something that I use and trust all the time. There are other wallets to explore as well. There's Argent and Fortmatic, Electrum. I'm not too familiar with that. There are a number of them out there.
Okay.
But I suppose what's interesting for me is like thinking about the community and the service behind it as well. You know, I think making sure that if you have a question, there's somebody on the team that can answer that is more important than perhaps like looking at more obscure wallets that maybe have some cool incentivizing things. Yeah.
Is the wallet on the app on your phone more secure than the extension to the browser?
I would say they're equal in terms of it, but perhaps maybe the mobile a little more, just because you can enable that Face ID, or you can enable the 2FA if you wanted to increase the authentication. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I'm from Bootcamp. Oh, cool, awesome. Yeah, of course. Happy to. Thanks for the questions, Glenn. Trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, the floor is yours. Please, anyone. Anything you want to talk about? DeFi? DeFi is cool. It's really weird, but it's a really cool space.
Robbie, you spoke.
Also, like,
sorry,
go for it.
You spoke of if you lost your password to your wallet. What does happen to, say, your cryptocurrency if you just can't remember it?
So if you lose your password, but you have your mnemonic and you have your private, nothing. You can recover. You can set a new password. Easy going. If you lose your mnemonic, you lose your private, and you lose your password, that's gone forever. And it just stays in that wallet locked up. And there are a number of wallets that hold a significant amount of money that are truly not accessible. And it's a heartbreaker, but that's how it is. Oh, wow. Nate?
What is a mnemonic?
Mnemonic is,
I didn't realize you were speaking, Nate. I apologize.
No, go ahead.
I asked Robbie what a mnemonic was. My questions are very, very basic.
So a mnemonic essentially is just going to be and here's actually a converter. I'll give you guys one. Is this it? Yeah. So this we actually use in the dev portal step 3. A mnemonic is going to be a series of words that are randomized that are totally unique. And so an example is like for one of my examples, when you're setting up a wallet locally, I ask you to generate a 12-word mnemonic. And I know that right now, if all of us were to go ahead and read that BIP 39 mnemonic out, we would all have very different mnemonics. So these are individual, or rather unique phrases that are attached to your identity, that are like, because of the seed and like the root behind it, the chances of having 2 mnemonics that are the same are next to impossible. But even anyone on this call, if you were to like download MetaMask for the first time and get that plugin, it would kind of walk you through and say like, here's your mnemonic, write that down. It might be 12 words, it might be 24 words, and please, please, please keep that so near and dear. I just can't emphasize that enough.
Awesome, thank you. Sorry, Nate, please ask your question.
No, all good. Beginner question for trading on decentralized exchanges like Uniswap or PancakeSwap. If I have, so I connect my MetaMask wallet, and to pick up crypto on Uniswap, I need Ether, and then in PancakeSwap, I need Binance coin. Do you basically just have to come in with both of those coins, and you can have it in your MetaMask wallet? Just make sure your network is set to the right one, and like all good, ready to go, and just swap directly from.
So that's a. Oh, did I lag out? I think Nate, are you still with us? I think you lagged out a little bit.
Still in there.
Oh, there you go.
To swap.
So that's a good question, and because this is operating on a separate network, essentially what you have to do, without getting into the weeds, is you have to wrap the token. And when you wrap the token, then you're able to store this on perhaps a MetaMask wallet. But you can't have Bitcoin on like a MetaMask wallet, but you can wrap it. And then once it's wrapped, then you could store it, and you just have to unwrap it as you cross between that. And like this is being worked on, and there's like cross-chain atomic swaps. Groups like Liquality or projects like Liquality are trying to make this like very fluid, or whatever you have, you're very interchangeable, and you don't have to like have all of these like separations, or honestly this like clunky UX behind it. But yeah, like Pancake is, just as you said, going to be on the BSC network, whereas like Uniswap or 1inch or any of these, if you were to try to do a pairing of, let's say, ETH and Link, have a liquidity pool, take that token and try to find something that has like a high APY and like start yield farming, which is what a lot of people talk about when it comes to DeFi. This would all exist in your MetaMask and on the Ethereum network.
Okay, so if I can just ask a follow-up clarification. So step by step, say from the beginning, if I'm, with my fiat currency, basically take the fiat, put it into Gemini or a Coinbase or an eToro or something like that. With that, buy some Ether. Now that I've got Ether, take that, put it in my MetaMask wallet, connect my MetaMask wallet to the Uniswap in this case, and then game on, and then do the same thing just in reverse with the BNB and with PancakeSwap.
Yeah, okay. And in just those simple 47 steps, you too can, so like that.
But those are the steps, right? Like if you want to pick up a coin that's only on Pancake, or you want to pick up something that's somewhere else.
So it's you exactly that. You set up an account, or you do a wire. You get that set up with whatever you want, like let's say Gemini. You purchase that. There's a cooldown to verify the transaction occurs. Throw that in your MetaMask. Take that to Uniswap. Take a portion of that. Say you bought 1 ETH. Take half your ETH. Get another coin. Look at the liquidity pools that are offered on 1inch or Uniswap, and what they do is they offer pairings. And so then you could say, I'll take some of my ETH and some of my Link, and I'll put it in this place, and then you get a new token. And this is like a pairing token. And then you could take that token and go somewhere else and then stake that to like kind of double down. And when you stake that, and some of those have like high APYs, you get like larger returns. You cash that out, take that token, put it back in Uniswap, get your total back out. And so maybe you had 1 ETH that became half an ETH and like a bunch of Link, and you over the course of 2 months make some yield farming plays. Let's say that $3,000 could theoretically be $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 based on your place. What gets interesting though is the gas fees. Just because when the network is very congested, and this is what's going on right now with EIP 1559, EIP stands for Ethereum Improvement Proposal. What we're trying to do is we're trying to like mitigate the gas behind it. So if you didn't have a lot of money and you were trying to like do this, and everyone is like doing it because it's a bit of a gold rush, that transaction might cost you $500. And what if you only had $300 to begin with? Now you're like 2 in the hole just because you're like trying to do something. And so this is a huge problem, is dealing with the gas and the congestion, which is actually going to be proposed to be in a much better place. I want to say London, the fork London is coming out, is supposed to be coming out in July, which will help. An example of like how you could think about this is if you're driving on a highway, you need gas, and everyone's on the highway and they all need gas. If I own a gas station, I could be like, well, everyone needs it. You can't go anywhere without me. I'm going to rocket my prices, and you have to pay for it. Deal with it. Right. So now what we're trying to do is like set a standard of like, no, the prices cannot exceed this. Stop being crazy, sort of thing.
And does that high gas price before the adoption of, say, ETH 2.0 put risk to Ethereum, say, long-term case relative to other cryptos on other platforms?
I would say no.
It'll wash itself out in the short term.
I do think it'll wash itself out, and it's like, because admittingly, like if you want to like play the game, you need to have stake. Like it's you just have to have some money if you're trying to do LP plays and yield farming. However, if you just want to hold ETH or Link or GRT or something and just like not do anything with it, just like set it and forget it, cold storage it, you can do that and not have to worry about any of the network fees or anything beyond that. So for as deep as you want to go into the game, it's just more that you have to pay to play.
Yeah, very cool. It's nice to talk to a human being and versus just say reading and researching.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And one more link I have. This one I would say is a really important one. It's I made mention of it a little earlier. It's Finmatics. It's on YouTube, and I swear by these videos. These videos are absolutely incredible. And they talks about how to not get wrecked with DeFi hacks. What is DeFi? Truth about it, different wallets, what's Polygon, what's scaling, what are ZK rollups, side chains, Plasma, who is Vitalik Buterin, what is Ethereum 2.0, talks about sharding, Ali, if you're curious on one of them, the beacon chain, APYs, all kinds of stuff. So this is a really, really cool hole to fall down.
All right, that's really good information, Robbie, and we appreciate you coming out. Does anyone else have any questions? So one last question I do have for you, Robbie. As developers, we can dive into the education part, and from our background, be able to learn the blockchain and Ethereum. What do you see like what is the best way to educate the general public of what blockchain and Ethereum and how it all works?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's something that we wrangle with quite a bit. Right now, it's a combination of trying to put digestible material together that, someone, regardless of like what generation they're from, is going to be like, okay, this makes sense. And also making sure that we have a successful way to sort of share this information. It does feel sort of grassrooty right now. And if anyone wanted to kind of keep up with Twitter, or I'm sorry, not Twitter, crypto, most of us live on Twitter. And like crypto Twitter is like known as like a thing where all the players are there, but it can become a bit of an echo chamber. It's like the same like 200 people all like shouting at each other like blah, blah, blah. And so it's a good place to observe. Maybe not the best tool, but in order to like educate the general public, what needs to happen is better UX, right? Because that onboarding experience is really important. As Nate and I were just talking, like take you this and go here and swap over here and like do that. It's just like if I try to explain this to someone, there's like the glaze becomes real thick super quickly. So just making it very easy, where I don't need to go in 10 different apps, or I don't need to do. I could just do it all very quickly in one platform. So creating digestible software, regardless of the complexities behind it, are going to be how we get that adoption. Because I would say right now, the tier that I see is you have the hyper curious, to the curious, to the interested, to the neutral, to the against, to the hate, right? And so this is going to be the kind of the landscape of where we are. The hyper curious are the people who bought in years and years ago, 2010, 2011. They were buying BTC on the Silk Road and like seeing what that was like. Now we're starting to see the curious and the interested sort of coming in. And every time we get more and more people in, we need to make sure that we're tightening up on that UX and the documentation's there and the experience is there, because the further we get away from the hyper curious, the more difficult it's going to be to not necessarily convince, but to like properly like share how these things work.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think my dad was in this chat for a little bit and he left. I think he might have broken his brain.
Sure. Yeah, no, and it's a very real problem. Although a few of you were asking some pretty complex questions, which is super cool. But there's I often use the analogy like when 56K came out for internet, it was pretty clunky. It was slow. It was pretty annoying. Everyone's like, what's the internet for? It was considered a fad, right? I have a radio. I can read the newspaper. Why? I just emails. Who cares? I'll just call you. We went from 56K to cable or DSL, and this is when people are like, oh, it's like a little faster. We started to see the ability to manipulate HTML or CSS and like start to like see like JS coming into it. So I think right now we are in the process of transitioning away from that clunky 56K into that cable, and then we'll start to work on like that T1 to continue to use that analogy, where by the time you come on, you might be using a decentralized application, utilizing all the tech that I talked about without knowing it or even having to know it, right? Just like it works.
Abstraction.
I do see in the chat, Larry said that they were interested in learning more about digital micro-credentials, our kind of currency.
Yeah, Larry,
I might
do you
have
I'd be curious to hear perhaps a little clarification on that question, Larry.
Are you with us, Larry?
Would development change during a bear market? No, it would not. That's a good question. Be it a bull run or a bear run, it is Dfinity, if you've heard of it. I have heard of Dfinity. Dfinity is really cool. Oh, Larry, you can't unmute. So let me try to figure this out. Interested in learning more about digital micro-credentials, our kind of currency. I'm trying to figure out what the micro-credential might be. if you wanted to type that out, I'll do my best to answer it. They have value to the holder. Well, I suppose if you wanted to reach out to me on Discord, or happy to give my email, so later on we can better. No, it's okay. We can talk about that more. Let me go ahead and let me drop my email so everyone has access to that as well. But development does not stop for anything, bear market or not. There was a point where Ethereum crashed pretty aggressively last February, from like $320 down to $90, and we all just kept going. And now it's at about $3,500. So quite a difference in a short amount of time. There is my email. Please, everyone, feel free to reach out. Dfinity is really cool. Yeah, so that's a really interesting project that's like playing around a little more when it comes to like the DeFi space, and kind of like pushing more into the future state of what Ethereum is going to be. It's the last, it's a layer 1 blockchain project that's about public networks. It's trying to like help when it comes to the operation speed and like the scalability. And so again, you're asking some killer questions, and I do want to give you proper answers, but this is another one that could be pretty juicy. I do believe that Finmatics talks about Dfinity, but this is an excellent project that I'm personally like pretty bullish on, because they've got fellowships, the Beacon Fund, enterprise development, and a couple other things that are going on. Plus, their documentation for the developers is pretty good. Do you think it would replace Ethereum? No. No, everything's built on Ethereum. Ethereum is, a lot of things would not exist without Ethereum, and so in my opinion, Ethereum is here to stay. And I personally, I should be mindful. I believe Ethereum still has not necessarily just money, but also that by proxy, but it has not even started to like show its like full potential in terms of like what we can do with it. There are a lot of amazing projects that get a lot of recognition and have a lot of like money vested in them, and most all of them are built upon Ethereum. So yeah. I know there are competitor side chains. There's like Polkadot, and there's Cardano, ADA. I think I don't ever want to try to be like a maxi, where I think like, it's Ethereum or bust, to like only use Ethereum. I mean, use whatever you want, but I do believe Ethereum has proven itself to be beyond useful. So,
do you think we'll ever reach a time when like there's technology that allows those chains to talk to each other more easily?
Yes, I do. So I really do think that, and this comes down to this UX kind of problem as well. Because what if you do want to interact with side chains, or if you wanted to interact with a totally different blockchain, that's just very clunky right now. And so the future UX is going to just make it like you just pick what you want to do, and it just does it for you. Yeah.
And I'm so sorry. We've taken up so much of your time, Robbie. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But in terms of like development jobs, what is the outlook for jobs in the industry? Is it growing? Is it difficult to start out in blockchain, or are there roles for junior developers?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. I'm sad I didn't bring that up earlier. Let me see really quick here. So here's one link. This is called Crypto Jobs. And there's another one as well. Crypto Job List is another one. Here's another one. Getting your foot in the door, it can be a little tricky, to be honest, but it is certainly not impossible. And I would say I am proof of that. I came from a coding bootcamp in Portland, Oregon, and started as an intern and just kept going. Now I've been with the company now for, geez, almost 3 years. No, two and a half years. With that said, it kind of comes down to, it's easier to get in this space if you show you have interest in this space. So perhaps you're going to BUIDL events. Maybe you become an ambassador. Maybe you do a couple bounties. Maybe you share some information. You write a Medium article on something you've done or something you've built. Like if you show that you have the curiosity, to keep building, then people start to look at you. Or if you go to hackathons. Hackathons is a really great way to network and to meet people. And I personally know a few people who are self-taught developers, just went through Crypto Zombies, poked around, did some documentation, joined a hackathon. They performed pretty well, and then a company like Maker or Near or whatever the case is reached out to them and was like, hey, are you interested in a 3-month or 6-month long internship with possible revisions to continue that forward? I would definitely kind of look at these two job postings. Also keep an eye on the Consensys careers. We are always looking for talented people. Admittingly, a lot of those people were sourcing out of the Consensys Academy because dog fooding. But if you are, someone that is showing a lot of promise, then we do our best to try to find a place for you. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Amazing information. My brain feels very full right now.
Yeah, no, that's great information, Robbie. We do appreciate it. And yeah, it's definitely very educational.
Yeah, thank you
no,
so
I'm
much.
happy. Yeah, of course. No, I appreciate everyone on this call, all your time. Thanks for letting me ramble for about an hour and a half. I would say to continue this if you want to. Email me, but honestly, I would probably say just jump in our Discord. There's a lot of conversation. I'm one of the runners of that. We got about 6,000 people in there, and there's always communication going on. And so if you have a question, or if you just want to maybe develop something with someone, that is the place where you start. I would say we've purposely tried to build it so it's very user friendly to the curious, and then they can ramp up as much as they want to.
Awesome.
Robbie, could you
There's
share the Discord address again, please?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Here is the invite. Oh, also, I did throw it in there, so there's a Discord invite. Let me know if that doesn't work. It should. But if anyone here did have some time to fill out this type form, that would also be a nice way. I'll share it again right at the bottom. This would be a nice way for me to make this better and also keep in touch with you and potentially drop you an NFT or some testnet tokens, or if you needed something to get up and going as a dev, if you just give me your address, then I'll send you some.
All right, got some really good links there and some really good resources to follow up on. So appreciate that, Robbie. Anything else to add, Kenzie?
Just want to tell people about the tech talk we're having next week, which will be starting from scratch, surviving your first tech job with Derek Meyer. And we'd love to see you there for that. And I want to thank everybody who came to the talk, and thank you, Robbie, so much. That was so much great information. And I'll put my email in here too. If y'all have any question about tech talks in general, or want to recommend anyone as a speaker, or if you lost Robbie's email and lost all those links, I'll have that all saved. So feel free to reach out to me if you need to connect with Robbie or another speaker. And yes, the next tech talk, if you look here, I'll paste the link for our meetup page. If anyone found us through Eventbrite and wants to stay connected on Meetup, that is in the chat now as well. Yeah, and feel free to reach out to me for anything tech talk related, or really anything. And a million thank yous, Robbie. This is great. We'd love to have you back too, if we want to maybe have a more technical focused talk at some point.
Happy to build out whatever everyone wants. I'm always happy to show whatever. so just let me know. And we can next time perhaps build out a full stacked app. People could follow along, and we could deploy it, or we could fall down whatever hole makes sense that the community is looking to learn more about.
We could go on all day. Really good stuff, Robbie.
Hackathon, yeah, of course. No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm gonna have to drop though.
All right, thanks, Robbie. Thanks everyone for coming out.
Right.